Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 457.
Creepy Crawlies.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Derek looks at Friday. I have a tale of annoyance to share, and Tom tells us about some upcoming games he played at the F2Z event. Plus, we get a little freaked out by our top 10 games with creepy, crawly critters. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Heimlich to my PT Flea, Tom Vassell.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, come on. You have to know what I'm talking about.
I don't think anyone ever knows what you're talking about.
It's a Pixar movie about bugs and circus performers.
Okay. I don't remember the names of everybody in these movies.
A Bug's Life? You know.
I know A Bug's
P.T.
Life.
Flea was the little John Ratzenberger character, and he hops around. It's the ringleader of the whole thing. He was the announcer. Hey, everybody! And then, the big guy was Heimlich. Hey, I'm the big guy, and everybody loves me.
Unfortunately, I think for me is that A Bug's Life is probably in my bottom of the Pixar movies. It's okay. I don't dislike it because I don't know if there's any Pixar movie I dislike. I just didn't really like that much. I think I've watched it once.
It's not the greatest. I actually liked Ants better that came out right before it. The Woody Allen one.
Yeah, I liked Ants. Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
But anyway, it is apt to the subject of today's episode.
That's true. That's true. Folks, my name is Tom Vassell.
Hi there. I'm Eric Summerer, and I do watch movies.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm so very excited. We are recording this on March 4th, and everyone's making a big deal about May the 4th be with you, and I don't care one whit about that because I am on Team Captain America.
Yeah, that does open this weekend. I'm excited about it, although I think I need to wait a couple weeks. My wife hasn't seen the latest Avengers movie, so I can't go to see it with her yet.
Okay, first of all, that's something you could go and do tonight. You could go watch that movie tonight.
No, we're recording a podcast.
That's something you could do tomorrow night.
Oh, all right, yeah.
It's so easy to watch those. I just watched Captain America 2 with my kids so that they would be caught up and prepared. Although two of them have said they are Team Iron Man, which is saddening me because it's pretty obvious Captain America is the right guy to follow.
Pretty obvious, huh? Okay.
I don't really think you can hold a different position. It's very a good analogy would be the political. No, I better stay out of that.
Yeah, let's not do
I'm
that.
just kidding, folks. I meant nothing by that. Yeah, that's the farthest we'll stick our toes in that area.
But this is the beginning of the summer movie season, and there's a lot of fun stuff coming soon.
Yeah, but honestly, this is by far the one I was looking forward to the most in a long time. I'm looking forward to Rogue One, but Civil War is it. So, folks, though, we're here about board games, so let's talk a little bit about the Dice Tower plans as the summer comes by. Let's see. I'm about to go to the Cool Mini or Not convention, so in a couple weeks I'll give a kind of a rundown of what I saw there. I expect that will be a lot of fun. And then at the end of May, and the beginning of June, really, I'll be at the UK Gaming Expo.
That sounds fun.
So to all of our British and other fans that are in that area, we welcome you. Come by and say hi to us. And in fact, I might have a few promos with me. So if there's a promo that you're looking for that's not one from this Kickstarter, because we have not yet shipped those out. Mm-hmm. But if there's a promo you're looking for, maybe I can bring some of the older Sheriff of Nottingham promos, maybe throw a couple Tomricks in there if I have any, and some dice or poker chips, whatever.
Cool.
And so me and Sam will be doing a show there. Sam will be covering for Eric, I think.
He does know how to do it.
That's what I've heard.
It's like falling off a bike.
Yes. Origins, then, is coming up in the middle of June. Origins is, the one reason I want to mention Origins, in particular is because we have a show that we're doing there. That show
don't believe the rumors. We do have a show.
It's Saturday night, 9:00. It's going to be we have a huge room. There's room for everyone. We're going to do a game show. We're going to have prizes. We're going to have surprise guests. Okay, we're going to have guests. Maybe not surprisingly. So come on out to that. It's going to be fun, and it's not in the book at all. Okay, it's not on the event schedule because Origins hates us. They don't actually hate us, but it's not in the event book because whatever. So you can come. You need a generic ticket. Origins is making us do that, but we would love you to come. Add it to your schedule. Speaking of schedules, Gencon schedule is opening up May 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And that one we are on the schedule for. The Dice Tower show, Friday, 2:00. Now, this is a different time. We've normally done these the last 2 years we've done them at night.
Yes.
We did it at 2:00, I think, 3 years ago.
I think so.
That was when we were in that creepy hotel.
That weird room with the pillar in the middle of it. With the train. The train and the shadow people.
And the Doctor Who villains were all throughout that hotel. There was just statues hanging out of trains, and it was really, I found it somewhat unsettling. And
it was a little strange.
And it didn't help that the hotel was like a maze.
Yes.
It was one of the least intuitive hotels. But anyway, I think we did that at in the afternoon, didn't we? It feels like we did. So we're back to the afternoon. But we have the biggest room, folk. It's not even that far from the exhibition hall. It's the biggest room we can get. So 1,000 of you can come. But you know what? I would still get the tickets because it might fill up.
Yeah.
Also,
who knows?
There will be prizes and stuff there. I've been assured of that. There might be singing. I don't know. So
we're still arguing for both sides of that particular debate.
I don't know who's arguing. I mean, I think I'm arguing with myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should sing or not. That's my argument.
To sing or not to sing? That is the question.
So that's all coming up. There's a possibility I might run another panel at Gen Con, but I haven't decided yet. So we will see. Let's see. That's all the different conventions that we're going to talk about for now. There's Dice Tower Con coming in there too. And
plus, you know where our booth is at Gen Con, too. You were just talking about that to me.
I do know where our booth at Gen Con is.
Unless you're keeping it a secret for now.
I'm not keeping it a secret. It's just that I don't have it memorized. I want to say it was 2129, but that might be wrong. And now that I've said that, they had a really cool interactive map, though. I have to say I was really happy with this PDF map that they had.
Well, we're right inside, the exhibit hall is larger this year, and we're right inside the new entrance that leads to that section of the hall, which is kind of cool.
That is true, and I'm kind of excited about that because I think it's a pretty good spot. We have double the space we had last year, and so as I'm zooming down here, we are in, what did I say that I thought it was?
2129?
Okay, well, that's very much not the correct case.
That's incorrect. Good. Whoever's in 2129 is going to be really excited to get all this promotion.
It's 2821.
2821.
2129 is that, I think it's that T-shirt thing, so you don't want to go there.
They don't need any help from us.
It's a bunch of books, and yeah. So, okay, let me rephrase this now. So one more time, just so we're not confused. 2821. If you see the giant booth selling Pokemon, we're catty-corner to it.
Okay.
So anyhow, that's going to be fun and exciting and all, and we hope to see you there. So anyway, let's get off this future stuff, and let's talk about stuff we have done game-wise, and I'm going to jump into that with a game called Alan's Adventureland.
Okay.
Who do you think is the designer of this game, Eric?
Well, Alan Mouskowitz? No.
What?
Alan Moon.
No, it's actually Alan Ernstein.
Oh, okay.
It's a really weird name, It's called Alan's Adventureland, and you're like, oh, it must be Alan Moon, because he's a famous Alan designer. Alan Ernstein is not quite so famous. And I mean, he has done and been involved in more than just this game. Dry Gulch, Inca Empire, he's been involved with. But it's still just a really weird name. For me, anyway. So, one of the games that he has designed, I think you may have played in the past, Eric. I am having a hard time pronouncing this, but I think it's pronounced Tahuan Tinsuyu?
Oh, Tawantetsuyu.
Oh, shut it. Okay.
Yes. Great game.
Didn't they remake that game? Oh, Inca Empire.
Right, Inca Empire, yes.
Right. Well, if you remember, the whole point of that game, or the innovative feature of that game, was playing something between two players.
Yes.
Yes, well, that is what Alan's Adventureland does also. In Alan's Adventureland, also known as AA, you are building an amusement park. And
cool.
I love that. It's a great theme. And it's totally doesn't make anything to do with this game. Essentially, at the end of the game, you're going to get points for having stacks of tiles, having tiles in rows, having tiles in columns, and having tiles in specific spots on a grid. So you are just putting tiles down. So each turn of the game, you have some cards. You will play these cards between players. If a card is between players, that means you can then play another card from your hand that matches a card that's between two players and put out a tile of that type somewhere on your grid. If it does not match a card between you and another player, then you have to pay some points to put out that tile, if you so desire. And you do this like, 16 times or 30 times, a certain amount of times. You'll do this, and then you score. If you have a whole lot in one column or a whole lot in one row, you get more points. If you get a whole stack of tiles, you get more points. And if you have them covering different color grids that are on your board, you get more points. That's the whole game. It's fine. It's a decent game. I wish the theme was more pronounced. I really like the amusement park theme. And it feels a little too much like playing those cards between players. You do that every turn just to put out one tile. It feels almost a little too, it's not convoluted because it's not that complicated, but it just seems like an extra step every time to do something. So this one gets a solid okay from me.
Okay.
It's pretty. Well, the boxes anyway. The board is okay. That's Alan's Adventureland. Also, I hate the name. I really hate the name. It just
isn't there another Adventureland out? Isn't that one of the Hobba games?
Then call it something else.
Yeah, all right. First for me is the Palaces of Carrara. I think you had talked about this one, right, Tom?
It's been a while. I played this back when it was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres.
Yeah, it's been a little difficult to get. My game group leader actually got a copy from Germany, got a German copy, and you can certainly play it
I don't believe
with
it
just
was
a couple
ever
of...
printed in English.
It wasn't never printed in English? I thought there was maybe a small print run in English.
Yes, if it was printed in English, it was a very tiny amount.
Anyway, the Palaces of Carrara is a resource management collection game in which you are building tiles that represent, I think it's, I want to say like 6 different suits, 6 different types of buildings that you can build in 6 different locations on your little player mat. And the resources you're using for this are ranked. There's sort of a gradient to them. The easiest to get, the cheapest to get are one color, the black cubes, and then the hardest to get, the most expensive are the white cubes, and there's sort of a gradient that goes along there. And when you build something, there's a price on all of these tiles, but it's just a number. It's not like a particular arrangement of colors, just a number. So you need to spend 4 cubes 4 resources in order to build this thing. But based on what you use to do that is where you get to place that tile, which location it can be built in. So if you use any black cubes in your building, it has to go in the lowest, the cheapest town. But if you only use, say, gold and white cubes, you can build it in the gold town, or actually anything below that. And depending on where you place it, you may get certain bonuses when you score those buildings. The lowest town is just money, 1 times the number of resources that you spent to build it, all the way up to victory points, 3 times what you spent on building it in the first place, if you spent all white cubes in order to do that. The way you get these cubes is there's this rotating market, a neat little lazy Susan thing on the board, that rotates down as cubes stay on there. Anytime you take the I'm going to buy cubes action, you rotate it to begin with, and then add a couple more cubes so that there's 11 on the wheel, and then you can purchase from one of the wedges on the wheel. So you may want to buy from farther up on the track to get the resources you really need, but some of these rotate down and, 2 or 3 resources might be free if you pick a particular wedge. But you also, whenever you rotate this, you're bringing the price down for other players. So it's a very tricky set of decisions when you decide to acquire resources. You continue this until you have cycled through all of the tiles. I think there's another endgame trigger as well. But you also only score when you place one of your scoring markers on one of your spots. And I mentioned there's 6 different suits of these buildings. You can only score each of those suits, each of those types of buildings once. There's also some locations based on those 6 cities I talked about. You can score those cities, and if you put your scoring marker on a city, you score all the stuff on that city. No one else can score that city. So you can actually steal it from somebody else who may be building up for a big scoring opportunity later. I liked this game quite a bit. Good times. I like tough decisions, as I already said. I like the resource collection. How do I acquire what I need? How do I keep things flowing? I may get a really big turn or get a scoring opportunity and then realize I don't have enough resources to be agile and to be able to react to opportunities that arise. So you have to keep those resources flowing, decide when you want to score, what the timing needs to be. There's also a variable end game condition as you play the advanced game that you have to achieve certain goals, all of them, in order to end the game. And there's a whole stack of cards that change that endgame condition. I was very happy with this. I can't wait to play it again. This looks like it has a lot of things to explore. Big thumbs up. If it were only easier to acquire, the Palaces of Carrara.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about this game. I like it a lot too, but it's kind of odd that this one just didn't seem to make the cut. I'm not sure what the deal is in that regard.
It's a busy marketplace. I mean, a lot of stuff came out last year, and I think it may have just gotten shuffled under and didn't get enough buzz to get an English reprint.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's talk about good games. Well, okay, that's a lie. What's not? Let's talk about a bad game. Shadow over Westminster.
Oh.
Now, I saw Shadow over Westminster at Gamma Trade Show, and I usually pass by a lot of small independent publishers because their games don't look very good at all.
Yeah.
But this one looked pretty fun, especially when I sat and talked to him about the theme. In this game, it's a cooperative game. Each person is like a member of a secret order. Like one person's a Knight Templar, another person's a Watcher, another person's part of the Illuminati. And you're working together to stop the end of the world, which could be like 20 different ways the world could end. You pick one at the beginning of the game. And so it's a cooperative deck builder. You have these cards that you will be investigating with and researching to get better cards, and then go around and stop darkness from spreading. Think Pandemic. And when I say think Pandemic, it's like they stole the idea from Pandemic. There's different locations on the board that you can go to. Darkness shows up at the beginning of these on each turn. If too much darkness is at one, it like explodes or whatever happens, and then darkness is sent to like the Cataclysm spot. And if the Cataclysm spot gets too many cubes, you lose the game. Problems. One, the graphic design is just not very good. It's boring. Two, the game's a deck builder, but most of the cards are minor, tiny upgrades, and they're pretty expensive, and it's just a slog. And that's the thing about the game. The game's a slog. It's like, oh, all right, I got to get this. Oh, I got to get that. And then there's 20 different cataclysms with the possibility of 4 of them with one of the people in the game turning a traitor. That sounds amazing, but you know what? You can lose before you even find out what the cataclysm is.
Oh.
You can also find out what the cataclysm is. You're like, okay, so what does this one do? Oh, it changes a minor rule of the game. Well, that's it. It doesn't. They don't feel different. They really don't. And so this game feels like almost a half-baked cooperative game. There's a lot of half-baked games out there, and I'm just not really that interested in them. I'd rather play a full-fledged, fun, cooperative game. It's hard, and I can live with hard, but this game just, it's frustratingly random. You'll be like, okay, what are we going to do now? oh, the next 3 cards all sent darkness to the same place. That place, all the people there get an extra junk card in their deck, and they get sent back, and all the work you did is gone. And there was nothing you could do to stop it. This kind of randomness shows up in other games like Shadows over Camelot and such, but this feels like a pale imitation of Shadows over Camelot. So it's a cool idea for a theme, but bleh, I didn't like it at all. Shadow over Westminster.
Next up for me is Ravenous River. It's a small card game from AEG. It's actually based on the theme is based on a logic puzzle, classic logic puzzle where, let's see, what is it? You've got a couple of chickens, and you've got a couple of cats, and you've got a dog, and you have to get them across a river. But your boat can only hold two animals at once. And if you leave the cat alone with the chickens, they're going to eat the chickens. And if you leave the dog alone with the dog's going to chase the cat away. And you have to get them across without leaving the wrong pair of animals alone. Something about the chickens need to outnumber the cats, whatever. That's the logic puzzle. In Ravenous River, you have a river and you have a couple of boats. Each can hold 2 animals, and there is 7. There are 7 animals, and there is sort of a hierarchy. They call it the line of predation. It's a sequence, starting with a lion down to an ox and going all the way down to cat and then mouse, but mouse can defeat the lion. Now, these animals start out face down along the side of the board, and on your turn, you can draw one of those animals and put them on either the boat or on the bank on the shore, or you can pay one of your 2 action cards. You only get 2 action cards to put them back down, face down on the row. Or, once there are animals out there, you can, again, discard one of your action cards to move an animal off of a boat or from the shore onto a boat. The last thing you can do is spend one of these action cards, and these action cards let you, capsize a boat or swap secret goals. Oh, did I mention? You have a secret role. You are one of these animals. And you are trying to survive one thing, the round, and you are also trying to eat as many animals as you can down that line of predation. Once the boats are full and somebody is out of action cards in their hand, you do a quick vote. You've got a little voting token, and you secretly vote whether you're going to continue the round or end the round. If you end the round, or if everybody's out of cards, then you score the shore, and you look at who eats who. But if there's a gap in the line of predation, then they don't actually eat. The eating stops if you skip an animal. And so you'll score there for who you eat, and then you look at the boats, and if somebody eats somebody else, they're going to score points. And then the boats move across to the other side, and you do it again, see if anyone eats anyone on the other side of the river, and then you get points simply for surviving. You play until somebody has 6 points. So if no one's won, you just reshuffle them up and deal out new animals, reset the whole thing. This is a light, simple micro deck game along the lines of Love Letter. It's designed to be played quickly. It's designed to be maybe a little chaotic. And there are certain combinations of action cards. There's 2 of each action card, and one of them is sink an empty boat. Just remove it from the game. And so it's possible if you play the action cards, you could totally lock the game or that round so that no animals make it across the river, or only one boat makes it across and you can't do anything to that boat, and so all you're doing is bringing out animals on the shore or hopefully ending the round. And I think it's designed to be like, okay, that's fine, let's just move on to the next round, but it still feels a little weird that it can be locked up like that with only 2 boats to maneuver. So I don't know if this really won me over. The art is interesting. It's a neat concept. I like that logic puzzle that it's based on, but it's a little too chaotic, and the fact that those action cards can sort of mess things over. And one of my most hated cards in a game like this is swap goals with a player. I hate it in Flux. I hate it in Chrononauts. I really don't like it. I don't like it when I've built something and then we just swap goals. Really? That's annoying. Anyway, I'm not sold on Ravenous River. Ravenous River.
I'm not hearing enough hatred from you, really.
It's not hate. It wasn't a good match for me.
Yeah, but see, a lot of these games that you go, then I play them because I'm like, well, Eric didn't say it was that bad. Like, for example, what was that Yeti game that you played recently?
Avalanche on Yeti Mountain.
All right, what did you say about that? You said something like, it was not so bad, right?
I don't think I said it was not so bad. I was pretty frustrated with that one.
Okay, well, it's putrid garbage. See, that's what you should say. Putrid garbage. That would help me out a lot, Eric, because then I wouldn't have played it.
The pictures are nice.
Yeah, they are. Well, that wasn't actually the next game I plan to talk about. I don't even know if I put that one on my list somewhere, but yeah, that game is, hey, let's just throw cards out and see what happens. When my kids hate a game, you know there's a problem. The next game I want to talk about is from Bombyx Histrio. This is a Bruno Catala game, who I think we can all say is this decade's Reiner Knizia at this point.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, in terms of sheer output.
I can get behind that.
And his games are quite solid. He's not the only designer of this game. It's also, he's a great co-designer, by the way. He works with a lot of people. Christian Martinez is the other designer. But there's just stuff he's just, and many of his games have gone on to be a big deal, like Seven Wonders Duel and Abyss and all that, all that jazz. Speaking of which, I don't know how I missed this. I'm going to take a moment here to pause and say, folks, the Dice Tower Award nominations were announced.
Oh, yes.
We
skipped right over that.
Duel thing brought that to my mind because that was nominated in several categories. You can check them out at DicetowerAwards.com. Folks, whether you may agree with every game on the list or not, these are fantastic lists of games. If you're trying to say, what should I play from 2015? Go check out these lists. So that's at DicetowerAwards.com. Anyway, so Histrio is a game in which players are going to be putting on a play for the king. And this whole thing has this kind of, what do you call it when you make humans look like animals?
Anthropomorphic? Oh, no. Make humans look like animals?
No, they're animals.
The other way around.
Instead of it being humans, there's chickens and turtles. And,
anthropomorphic.
Right. So it's like Shakespearean style stuff, but it's, you got chameleons and rabbits and whatever. So the king is kind of fickle. He might want to see a comedy or he might want to see a tragedy. He doesn't really know. At the beginning of the game, you flip a coin, and that's what he wants to see. So there's this cool stage set there with this rotating background that rotates from comedy to tragedy as the king's mood change, as well as a dial at the top. So at the beginning of the game, for example, he starts at 1 on, let's say, comedy. But let's say he gets 3 points worth of tragedy, then he'll be at 2 on tragedy because the dial moves over 3 that way.
Okay.
And so on. So the way the game works is there's 8 locations put on the table, and players are going to be, each turn of the game, they're going to be playing a card from their hand, 1 through 8, and that's the location you're going to. There are cards at these locations. These cards are mostly actors who are tragedy actors or comedy actors, but there's also acrobats, which give you special abilities and some other stuff. If you go to a spot and you're the only person there, you get the cards at that location. If someone else has gone there, you get nothing. But you also you'll get a special scoring card then that maybe you can use later on in the game that will give you extra points. A secret mission type card. So you're always going to get something when you go to different places. As you get these cards, these actor cards, these tragedy and comedy actors, you have the chance to discard them, or to discard one of the ones you get to influences the king's mood. Which makes the game very interesting because I want to have a lot of comedy actors in case the king likes comedy. So let's say I get 2 comedy actors and a tragedy actor. The tragedy actors are value 3, the 2 comedy actors are both value 2. And I'm going, all right, I'm going to go with comedy. So what do I do here? Do I discard the tragedy actor? Because if I do, then the king is going to move 3 towards tragedy. And I'm stuck with these 2 comedy actors. I could discard one of the comedy actors and make him go into comedy, but then I have a tragedy actor in front of me. And so that just because there's a lot of cards in a location doesn't mean it's a good place to go.
Yeah.
And if you do go to a location, you put a marker on that location because you don't get to pick that card back up until you're down to 1 card. Or if you go to some locations when you get some actors, when you get them, they have a special ability. pick all your cards back up. But it's pretty nice to have these markers down there because you can see which locations, like, oh, everyone else's color is on location 6. Nobody can go there. It's mine for the taking. I like that. You don't have to remember what cards everybody played. It's just right there on the board.
Right.
There's some other things in the game. There's managers that will get you coins, and there's the secret missions and stuff. But you basically go through the whole deck of cards twice and win these actors. And at the end of each time you go through the deck of cards, then a play is put on. You see if it's tragedy or comedy. Players will get coins based on how many actors they have that match the type that the king is. You add all the numbers together to see who put on the best tragedy or comedy, whatever the king is trying to see. They get bonus points, and so on. It's pretty interesting. It's a nice simultaneous selection game. I'm not sure it works with 5, the full complement of players. Is it like too much crossing all the time? But with 3 and 4, very, very solid. That's Histrio.
One of the games from last year that I was really itching to play and finally got a chance to do so is Dice City from AEG. In this game, you got a big old grid with a bunch of locations pre-printed on it, and you are trying to earn more points than your opponents by messing them up or by building up your civilization and acquiring trade cards, trading with these boats that show up on the side, or by knocking out bandits by making your military very strong. You do this because you have 5 dice in 5 different colors, and you'll roll these either at the beginning of the game or at the end of your turn and place them on this grid that you've got. So I might have a 3 in yellow, and I'll put that on the yellow row and on the 3 column, and I can look at this and say, well, I could simply, when it comes to my turn, remove each die from each of these locations and trigger their ability. So a lot of them earn resources or allow you to trade resources or raise up your military to do attacks on other players, stuff like that. And I will be acquiring cards to cover up these basic locations and do cooler things. However, you can also spend a die to move another die, which I think is awesome. That's really cool. So I can get rid of this die that I don't think I can use to move one of the dice in that same row, in that same color, left or right 1 space. That's neat. That gives me options. I can also turn in a die to get a little delay token that I can turn in 2 of these later for a free resource or to make my opponents re-roll a die. There's another thing I get to do with the die, too. I can't remember what the third thing is, or the fourth thing is. But what I like is that it's not totally reliant, much like Roll for the Galaxy. You roll, but then you have options. There's ways to manipulate the dice, to move things around. You can, in the way you upgrade cards, you can sort of set your strategy toward what you want to focus on. So I decided, just the way things were coming out, I really wanted to go for the trade ships. I didn't want to do attacks, so I can cover up my military guys and not really. Oh, yes, I know what the fourth one is. It is, you can either yourself, in order to trigger abilities, or have your opponents who attack you, you can have some of your locations shut down. They become inactive. They get a little token. You can no longer use them until you spend a die to remove the inactive token anywhere on your board. That's the fourth thing. I feel better now. I really liked this game.
Oh, yeah.
I went with the trading strategy. As I said, I was able to get a cool location that added 1 to all of my production buildings. So instead of producing 1 resource or 2 resources, it produced 2 or 3. But there's also this rule that you can only keep 1 of each resource. There's only 3 resources in the game. You can only keep 1 of each from turn to turn. So you can't just stockpile and save up to buy one of these big boats. You actually have to come up with a strategy that will earn you that much stuff in one go, which is tricky. It's a puzzle when you look at your dice. I like being able to manipulate them and figure out how I can make my plans work. The card that gave me the extra resources really helped me, and I was able to trigger that location through the manipulation of the dice more often than not, which really helped me complete my goals. The other players were sticking with more of either a balanced strategy or a military-only strategy, and I was able to outpace them, which was satisfying. It was a lot of fun. I think there are expansions for this, right, Tom?
There's an expansion that just came out, and I should be reviewing in a couple weeks on the Dice Tower.
Well, I look forward to hearing what you think, because I want more Dice City. Big thumbs up from me.
Yeah, Dice City is a pretty solid game. Highly recommend it. Hey, let's talk about a game, though, that you can play only by yourself.
Hello, and welcome to the Solo Game Corner. And look who's here. It's Derek Davis.
Yo, how's it going? Derek Davis here from the What Did You Play This Week podcast. Welcome to the Solo Game Corner, a place where introverted gamers come for a social recharge. This segment presents the games I love to play to recharge my energy for more social board gaming endeavors. Well, no news here, but playing board games is not the only area of social interaction in my life. I work at a seminary in the Midwest, and I play a part in contextualized education. In that capacity, I recently attended a small conference in Estes Park, Colorado. Because the conference was small and much of the work done was brainstorming, dialoguing, presenting, etc., I knew that it was imperative to bring a few solo games along to give myself a recharge when I retired to my room. And while I brought several games, Onirim, Castellion, Pax Porfiriana, there was one game that fit the situation perfectly. Friday. In Friday, you're Friday, and you've recently watched Robinson shipwreck on your island. Now that Robinson is stranded on this island and attempting to survive the many threats that assails him, you are there to help him along. It's a tricky deck-building puzzle in which you are trying to avoid and cull your deck of cards that hinder you. The mechanics are simple. You flip a card that has two challenges, one difficult, one slightly easier. Then you flip cards in your personal deck, which represents your skill. If you win, you add the card to your deck. If you lose, you take damage. But you also get to cull bad cards when you take damage. So, do you build your deck with good cards early, or do you take the opportunity to thin your deck early? You also have to take into account that as the game progresses, those challenges that you failed are going to come back to haunt you, and they're going to be a lot harder. So do you tackle the more challenging cards now when it requires less skill, or do you focus on the ones that you know you can beat? These decisions are the crux of the game. I'm horrible at it, but I love the way everything balances to make most decisions deeper than you would first imagine. But why is this game the perfect fit for me? Why did it allow me to recharge after those long days of team-building exercises and deep conversations? As I reflect on it, I think it was the theme. I was a person struggling to help this guy survive alone on an island. This imagery provided me with two insights. First, it reminded me of how much I enjoy and need solitude. However, it also reminded me of how much I need other people. No one wants to be stranded on an island forever. Though solitude is refreshing and life-giving to me, I also need to re-engage and live life, sharing my energy with my fellow human beings. Just one last thought, and this one is directed at the venerable Mr. Freese. I need a one-card expansion for Friday. Just one card to quell the eternal loneliness of poor Mr. Robinson and comfort him in his constant peril of jungle cats and pirates. Can we get a Wilson card, please?
Oh, and now, a tale of awkwardness. I go to a weekly meetup group for gaming, and during the last one I was excited to teach one of my newest acquisitions, Cthulhu Realms. I'm an avid Star Realms player, and I greatly anticipated this new spin-off with the Cthulhu mythos theme. As per usual at our group, when several people are available for games, it goes back and forth as to whom will play each game. 3 of us were sitting at the table waiting for someone in the remaining group to decide to join us. Unfortunately, it was that guy. Let's call him Franklin. He sits down with his lit magnifying glass, ready to learn, stating that he has played Star Realms before. As you know, Cthulhu Realms is not a direct port of Star Realms, and it didn't really matter anyway, as one of our players had never played it, and though Franklin stated that he had, we knew that he didn't remember how it worked. I explain how the deck-building aspect of the game works, and I launched into descriptions of the card layout and abilities, which in this game are all symbol-based, unlike Star Realms, which has only 3 symbols to learn. I described a turn and how that worked, and then I described how synergy in this game works. This is quite a bit different than Star Realms, as there are regular factions, 3 instead of 4, But then there are also the card types, and some abilities even rely on actions during the turn, such as discarding or abjuring a card. Turn 1. Franklin is the start player and lays down his cards. I have 2 followers and a goon, so I guess I can't do anything since they produce 0 money. We attempted to use the game terminology of conjuring power and sanity, but to no avail. No, Franklin, the followers produce 1 each, and the goon does 1 damage. Oh, I thought it was this number, pointing at the top right corner of the card. That's the cost to buy the card, not how much money it produces, Franklin. The rest of us take our turns, and it comes back to Franklin. So I have 4 money since I have these 2 initiates and the 3 followers don't do anything. No, Franklin, you have 3 money from the followers, and with the initiates, you can choose either 2 money or 1 damage. But what about this money? He asks, pointing to the top right of the card. That's the cost of the card and has nothing to do with what it produces. Top right is cost, top left is effect. The remaining players take their turn and it comes back to Franklin. And you can see how this plays out. By the second time he had to shuffle, he had finally grokked the discard pile and the reshuffle to refill your deck if you run out, but not the layout of the card. Turn 8 comes along. So I have 7 money. No, Franklin, that's the cost to buy the card. Top right is cost, and once it is in your deck, it no longer matters. Top left is what the card produces. Turn 12. I thought it was this number, pointing at the top right. Turn 15. But what about this number? That's the cost of the card, Franklin. You can ignore that once it's in your deck. And so on, and so on. Up to and including the last turn of the game in which Franklin came in second place. I'm so annoyed.
Eric, has this ever happened to you?
I don't know if it's gone the entire game, but there have been sessions that, still explaining the basic rules has gone on longer than I would like. I totally understand. The first play or two, sorry, I got the symbols confused. Sure, no problem. By the end of the game, you should have it figured out.
Yeah, I don't know what this is, and I don't want to come across as a jerk on this. Maybe there's a psychologist or someone who could explain this. I don't understand how really smart people cannot understand, like, sometimes 3 simple rules. Yeah, that's the cost of the card in the top left-hand corner. Well, how much does a card cost? It's the top left-hand corner. But where do I find out the cost? Yeah. The top left-hand corner. I'll write it on your head.
Yeah.
And I really have met people who are like this, where we'll say, hey, this is the rule of the game. And they'll go, well, how do I get money? You take this action. Later on, well, where do I get money? Over here at this action. I'm going to put a big sign. Take this action to get money. And it's frustrating, but at the same time, I wonder, am I just being a jerk about it? I don't want to be a jerk, but it feels like it's not that difficult. I don't know.
I don't know if it's just them not listening during the explanation. I mean, sometimes you just have to learn by doing, but occasionally the doing doesn't do the trick.
All right. Well, speaking of being annoyed.
And now it's time for bonus action. Musings, stories, gripes, and theories with Mike Rudman.
Hi, this is Mike Rudman, and welcome to Bonus Action. The most recent statistic that I can find says that over 250 million copies of Monopoly have been sold since it was first published by Parker Brothers in 1935. Now, for just a second, put yourself in the shoes of a non-gamer, and imagine if I told you that on the premier website designed by and for board game aficionados, Monopoly is ranked 12,124th of all time. Huh? There are 12,123 board games that are better than Monopoly? Well, that doesn't make sense. How did this happen? How is this possible? Now, if I were to ask you, the real you, not the imaginary non-gamer you, how did this happen? How is this possible? You might say something like, well, most people just don't know any better. Or if you prefer to put it more bluntly, most people are idiots. Right? That's how we explain inexplicable pop culture successes like Nickelback. Most people are idiots. Only Nickelback has pretty much gone away, and Monopoly has been around for 80-something years. So what's the deal? Well, for those of you who think that the masses just don't know any better, or that most people are idiots, I'm directing this next part at you. Please stop bashing Monopoly. You're only hurting our cause. Now, before you rush to the forums to explain why Monopoly really is a terrible game and why no one should defend it, I get it. I'm not trying to defend the game itself or argue that it belongs on your shelf. I don't particularly like it either. But what I really don't like is the sort of gaming elitism that the mere mention of Monopoly brings out in even the best of us. Ragging on Monopoly has become the secret handshake of gaming. It lets a fellow gamer know that you're in the cool kids club. It lets the ignorant masses know that you're so very much above such drivel. And at this point, it's become an old, tired joke. I think we need to move on. I used to be part of a game group that met in the cafe section of a Borders bookstore. The location will remain unnamed to protect the innocent. The staff was welcoming, the space was accommodating, and it was a great way to bring gaming out from the dark recesses of a cramped comic book store and into the public. One night we were playing some Euro game, and I realized that there was a bookstore patron who had wandered over and was standing over our table, watching intently. Someone said hello, and he said hello. And the next thing he said was, "So, is this kind of like Monopoly?" Without looking up from the board or even really acknowledging this guy, the player sitting across from me, no kidding, he sighs loudly, gets this disgusted look on his face, and says, "No, this is not kind of like Monopoly at all." Awkward silence, and then this man just sheepishly turned and walked away. So obviously this player was a jerk. But did I correct him or call this poor guy back to the table? No, I didn't. I'm not sure why. I'm not proud of it. Maybe the whole scene was so awkward and I was so surprised by this behavior that I froze up. Maybe it's because I was new to the group and didn't want to speak out. Well, both of these excuses are lame excuses. What I do know is that a curious potential gamer reached out and we shot him down. In dramatic fashion, we missed the opportunity to bring someone new to the hobby. And to what end? Isn't that why we were playing in public in the first place? Well, fortunately, I don't think this kind of blatantly rude behavior is a rampant problem in our hobby. But the kind of gaming elitism that led to this unfortunate episode is more common than you might think. And non-gamers asking if you like Monopoly seems to be a surefire trigger. The next time you tell someone that you play board games and they say, "What, like Monopoly?" resist the urge to condescend and preach or to explain why Monopoly is such a terrible game. Use their question as a springboard to tell them about another game they might like. Talk about how games have changed or maybe how your favorite game is different, not better, than Monopoly. Displays of elitism never bring people closer together. They only drive people away. And if you're like me, you want more people in on the secret. Be kind, be welcoming, and give Monopoly a break. It's a critical part of our history, so we owe it at least some respect.
Hooray, another Monopoly defender.
I guess I don't get this, okay? The actual specific situation he used, yeah, that guy's a jerk. And the fact that nobody stood up and said anything, yeah, sure. But I don't think that should stop people from saying they don't like Monopoly. And I'll tell you why. I don't think you should bash people's favorite games. I've done a whole thing on this before about not hitting other people's games. You know, like, "Oh, you like Munchkin? Oh, okay." Right. And it's hard sometimes because I'll meet someone, I'll be like, "Hey, what's your favorite game?" And they'll be like, "Phase 10. I'm like, "Tom, shut up, Tom. Don't say nothing, Tom. Tom, smile. No, they're bringing it out. All right, run.
Run.
At the same time, though, I think Monopoly is not as well loved as you think. So when someone comes and says, "Is this game like Monopoly?" I could say, well, these games are a little like Monopoly, but really, there's some problems with Monopoly. Like, you can get eliminated, and Monopoly can go on real long, and then you feel them out a little bit. And they'll be like, usually they'll say, yeah, you're right, it is kind of long. I'm like, yeah, but these games are much faster here. Blah, 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 blah. And you're not really knocking Monopoly, but at the same time, you need to point out and say, these are a little bit better for me than Monopoly. And always keep saying that "for me" part, right?
Right, yeah.
I just like them because, and say, I'm just not a big fan of Monopoly because it just seems to go on so long, and you can put a lot of effort in, and a roll of the dice can mess you over, whatever your reasons are with a Monopoly. You don't have to be a jerk. I think in this situation, it wasn't the fact that the guy said anything, it's Monopoly, it's the fact that he was a jerk.
Yes. I mean, a good response. "Hey, is this game like Monopoly?" Well, it depends. Do you like Monopoly? Yeah, we play it all the time. Well, yes, it's a lot like Monopoly. It's got, resource management, and it's got money. Look at this money.
Okay, let's talk about F2Z Entertainment. So for Tabletop Day, what did you do for Tabletop Day anyway?
I went to see Ratchet and Clank.
That's right. I think I saw your Facebook
I did not
post
play
about
a
that.
single tabletop game. I went to see a movie based on a video game.
I'll tell you, the Dice Tower gang went to the Cool Stuff store in Hollywood, and that was a rocking thing. It was pretty exciting. You could have been there. But I went to F2Z headquarters in Montreal, or near Montreal, Canada.
Nice.
Yeah, it's first time I've been to Montreal. Didn't really do much, but I had poutine fries with curry, which was that was a good combo.
That sounds awesome.
It was awesome. And then I had poutine fries with barbecue, which also was good. I've come to the conclusion that you could put pretty much anything on fries and I'm okay.
Uh-huh.
So anyhow, that's not...
I'm hungry.
Yeah, okay. Well, Tom can't talk about a convention without talking about food.
I didn't say it.
They had a little get-together gathering where there was different contests, and if you won a contest, you got to come to the headquarters, and so they brought me in as a special guest, I guess, which was kind of weird, but I got to see their headquarters, which was pretty neat. F2Z has these two big warehouses that are full of lots of games, mostly Pandemic, but they also have a lot of Asmodee games because they distribute all the Asmodee games in French in Canada.
Ah, yeah.
They also distribute Haba games and a few other companies' games up there. So I was able to look at all the Z-Man games and Plaid Hat games and Philosophia stuff, and that's all part of F2Z Entertainment, and they were showing off upcoming new games. Yay!
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I saw. Cthulhu Pandemic. All right, quick rundown. Cthulhu Pandemic is very similar to Pandemic. They changed the name of the roles, and there's some differences. And instead of one disease or 4 diseases, it's like one. There's just like cultists running around, and you're trying to stop these cultists. The map is a tighter, difficult map, and every once in a while a card is flipped over, and some nasty Cthulhu effect bothers everybody. And if the last card's flipped over, Cthulhu takes over the world. Mm-hmm. There's also like big Shoggoth creatures that are roaming around that take 3 actions to get rid of.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know. Pain in the neck. But if you don't stop these guys, they go into gates and cause more cards to come over. And if there's too many of them on the board, you also lose. So I played it once and we lost horrifically, except I then declared I was a traitor, which they told me was not in that game. But I feel like I had been a traitor. That's how poorly we played.
Ouch.
So fun. It's like a variant of Pandemic. Also, I did not play, but got to take a look at Dead of Winter, The Long Night. This is the sequel to Dead of Winter. It looks like basically Dead of Winter, another one. More characters, more cards. Eric probably knows all the cards.
Yes.
Okay, now, having said that, Eric, this is an interesting thing about this game, and I was curious because I was like, did Eric read all these cards? The reason I ask is because in the box, there's a small envelope of 8 cards or so that are like, these are entirely non-family friendly cards.
Ah, yes.
Do you know which card I'm talking about?
I have a couple of candidates in mind. There are some pretty extreme ones. Yes.
So, well, they say that I had to read the cards. And some of them were like situational, like maybe a kid is getting killed or something like that, which could be pretty horrific. And others were language or whatever the reason was.
There are some strong language ones. But
folks, if that stuff bothers you, you don't have to open this little pack. There's plenty of other cards in this game. So there's more characters, more of the Crossroads cards, and then they add like some modules. Like there's military enhance the zombies and some other stuff going on. There's now a new thing called Despair, which is... just makes your life worse. It really does. It's like a wound that doesn't go away.
And I think there's a couple of new mechanisms, too.
Yeah, there is, but I don't think you have to play with them. You could play it pretty much straight up like Dead of Winter, and then add in these modules if you so desire. And they are completely mixable. You could use the characters from one game and the Crossroad cards. Although I would guess that there's a slight dilution of the Crossroad cards that refer to specific characters if you're using all the characters in both games together, if that makes sense.
Sure, yes.
Then I got a chance to play Hanabi. I'm sorry. It's called Beyond Baker Street.
Okay.
Have you played Hanabi, Eric?
I have played Hanabi, yes.
Okay, the reason I asked that is because Beyond Baker Street is extremely similar In this game, you are cooperatively trying to solve a case where you have hands of cards of clues. You were trying to solve this card before Sherlock Holmes does. All right, together. And you have hands of cards with clues that you can't look at. You face everybody else and they see them. And each turn of the game, you might be able to tell somebody, like, you have these are 2 6s in your hand here, or these are 2 blues, or whatever. And then you will place these cards down at different spots to solve cases. Like this case might need an exact total of 14 blue for that part of the case to be solved. So it's very similar to Hanabi.
Okay.
But I do like the theme better, and I thought it was a little bit more focused than Hanabi, so I like it better than Hanabi. Junk art. I think I talked about junk art in the previous podcast.
You did. You played this at the Gathering as well.
I did. Well, it's almost out, and it's looking pretty good. Origins, I think it will be out at. And I saw the new Flick 'em Up expansion. Why? I love Flick 'em Up. Did I ever say that? Because I do.
I think it comes up every once in a while, yeah.
Well, this one adds Native Americans. And so you have these, the figures have kind of this little cardboard thing that like fastens around them. And then you put like an arrow. It's basically a road from Settlers of Catan. And then you flick it off this thing and it shoots across and knocks people over. Fantastic. And there's like tomahawks that you flick and they like fly across and hit people. There's also like Gatling gun where you put 4 discs into this thing and then flick them all at one time.
Oh my goodness.
Come on now. This is amazing. I love this game. They also showed me the mega Flick 'em Up that they're working on.
Mega Flick 'em Up?
Yeah, that's going to be like a super deluxe version.
Wow.
I don't normally buy super deluxe versions of games, but I would really think about this a lot.
Ooh. Tempting.
One last game they showed me. I forgot to put it here in the notes, and that's odd because it was my favorite game of all of them. And this game was called Caravan. Now, Caravan actually has 2 different covers.
Yes.
One is Caravan, the Spice Traders, or something like that. It has
the Spice Road edition.
The Spice Road, it's for like people in Europe. And the other one is the Crystal Golem, and that's for people in America. I think you could get either one, but it's the exact same game. Just different artwork, and one has cubes and one has little crystals.
Yep.
So you've played this, Eric?
I have not played it. I know of the concept. It's an Emerson Matsushi design. We talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Did we talk about this?
We did. We talked about the fact that there are 2 versions and that they're going to see which one sells better.
That's right. Well, I've played it now. The fact is, folks, when I first saw the cover's a beautiful cover, the Spice one, but I was like, oh, yeah, Caravan, yay.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, Emerson's name is on it. And I really believe that Emerson is going to be one of those designers that in 10 years, people look back and say he's one of the best designers ever.
No pressure, Emerson.
I really think when he designs, and I think when I talk to him, the clarity of mind he has about his game designs. Anyway, folks, here's the thing. This game is a game in which you are basically taking cubes or gems and changing them to higher cubes or gems. You do so by having a hand of cards. You play a card on your turn, or you pick up all your cards that you've played. A card might say, change a yellow gem into 2 greens. Change a green gem into a blue and 2 pinks, or whatever. Or you can buy a golem or whatever that is you're buying in the Spice one. I didn't play that version. By turning in a certain number of cubes, and that gives you victory points. Or you can get a new card that you'll add to your hand. And these cards are in a line, and you can take the first one for free, or you can take the third one, but then you got to put a cube or a crystal on the first 2 cards.
Right.
This game is so fun. I played it, and I was like, I want to play it again. It's like 25 to 30 minutes. I played with a full complement of 5 players. I would take my turn and be like, what do I do next? Oh, it's my turn again. I love that.
Wow.
This is a Splendor killer.
Oh.
This is the Spiel des Jahres nominee. I'm saying that now. That is how good this game is. I mean, don't get me wrong. The theme is barely there, and it's just change cubes and other cubes. But the way it does so is so fun and so fast. It gives me that same feeling Splendor did, where I was like, oh, putting poker chips down, doing this, doing that, boom, 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 boom. And this one is that same way. This is not coming out to Essence, so I am talking about a game quite a while before it comes out. But I loved it. I liked it better than Cthulhu Pandemic and better than Dead of Winter and better than Beyond Baker Street and Junkyard and all that jazz. I really love this game. If they had it right now, I would have played it today. That's how much I liked it. Which is odd because it's just a small, simple game. But it flows so well. Really enjoy it. That is
cool. And since we're on the subject of F2Z, what was your response to the Pandemic Iberia announcement?
Oh, it's Pandemic with trains.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sure. See, here's the thing. I'm not as always. I'm sure it will be fun, and I'll have a good time doing it. I get not as excited. It's like when they announce a new Ticket to Ride expansion. Oh, that's cool. But I'm not going to be jumping all over the room about it because it's more of the same in a sense.
Well, yeah, I'm just interested, with the Cthulhu version and the Iberia version and the whispers of a Season 2 for Legacy. There's a lot of Pandemic coming out.
Well, there's no whispers. Season 2 for Pandemic Legacy is happening.
Well, the details are whispers.
Well, before that one comes out, the big thing is, of course, Seafall.
Yes.
Seafall is the new Legacy game that will be released at Gencon that I am really itching to play. I get a lot of games, folks. They come in all the time, and I'll be like, oh, that looks interesting. Let's play that soon. Oh, that looks not interesting. Let's play that never. Or whatever, these games come in. Every once in a while, a game comes in, and I'm like, all right, whatever you're doing, stop it. We're playing this game. But, Tom, we need to get Board Game Breakfast out. People can starve. We will play this game. And so Seafall is in that category. The expansions for Time Stories are in that category. There's just some games when they come in, I'm like, we are playing this now.
I do envy you that you've got employees that you can just sit down and play immediately.
Well, no, you have an employee now.
I do, but,
It's harder to justify for you, right?
It is a little bit.
We're going to play this game.
So, did you get that book done? No. A new game came in.
Yes, that is true. But at the same time, I also get to sit down with my employees and play horrible games.
That's true. That's true.
But that's a lie. That doesn't even come close to negating it. But that's what I want you to focus on.
Oh, I will. I'll think about that. And smile.
All right. Well, let's go to something that makes most people not smile.
It's on me. It's on me. It's on me.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10.
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
Okay, I obviously made a big mistake here. If there's one thing I'm bad at, I'm not bad with coming up with top 10 ideas. I think I'm pretty good at that. I think I'm bad at communicating what I'm looking for to people in general. And this list is a good example because it was called the top 10 critters. And people are like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, oh, it's so obvious. And then I was like, oh, I should have said creepy crawlies. That would have been a whole lot more obvious than that I was talking about bugs and spiders and worms and things like that.
Yes, I did expand to rodents.
Okay, I did not because rodents could be a top 10 list on their own.
That's true.
But again, so I'm not going to get on Eric's case for putting wrong games in the list because, again, I'm just not, like I said, well.
Yeah, critter can certainly be, small rodents.
Yeah, I know. Here's the thing, though. I found it interesting that most games with these small bugs and things like that are for kids.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a lot of kids games in this category, I guess because kids are not as grossed out by bugs as adults are.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that gross out factor is actually a draw. I mean, look at how many slime-related toys there are, or goop and messy and gross sort of toys. Yeah, it's a draw.
All right. Well, do we have no crossover here?
There is. We have some crossover.
We have one crossover.
We have two.
We have two crossovers. I can't even count. Never mind. Let's get started.
Number 10.
Okay, I actually texted Tom about this one because this was one of the first things that came to mind, and that is the classic kids game Cootie. The reason it's there is not because of the game, because the game's terrible. But the unit, the cootie itself is so much an icon and a totem of my childhood that I could not leave it off of this list. Cootie is a terrible game, but those constructible plastic bugs that you end up with are so much fun. Toy factor through the roof. Game. Number 10, Cootie.
Yes, Cootie was my Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm with you there.
All right. My number 10 is one of those crossovers I didn't realize we had, so we will get to it eventually. I have no pun.
Number 9.
You always make fun of me for not having a good one. Number 9 for me is Atta Ants, a game that does show up on many of my lists. It's a very small box. You are trying to pick up and deliver fragments of leaf, bring them back to the ant nest in order to grow your colony. And for theme, this works really, really well. There's spiders that run around and try and eat your ants, and you're trying to keep away from them. Neat game, and the board expands. The bits factor, not terribly good. There's just discs in this game, but my wife put stickers on them, and when I think of this game, I've got little ant stickers on them and spider stickers and stuff like that. Really helps. But for theme, really, this is a great bug game. Number 9, Atta Ants.
My number 9 is Bugs in the Kitchen. This
Ugh.
is one of those games that comes with, I think they're called like hex bugs, something like that. And hex nano bugs, that's what they're called, right?
Okay.
My kids love these things. You turn them on, they just go all over the place and things. And this one is a cockroach that's running around, and you are rolling dice and trying to move walls so that it goes not into your area, but into someone else's. Ha ha ha. Or you can flip it and play that it is supposed to go to your area and not somebody else's. Either way, hilarious fun. My kids love it. I bring it out all the time. Lots of fun. It was, at least last year, easily found in mass market stores. That's Bugs in the Kitchen, which in real life makes me angry. But in this game is fun.
Number 8.
My number 8 was one of the crossovers that Tom mentioned in his number 10 slot, and that is Antics. This is a Fragor Games production, and it is about building an ant colony. And one of the big mechanisms that makes this stand out is that you're building sort of this hex anthill of ability tiles, and the more that you can see, the stronger that particular ability is, and when you trigger that action, it's that much cooler. It's actually a system that was used in another Fragor games, their Poseidon's Kingdom, a similar system there. Neat game. It's one I don't own, but it is a lot of fun. Antics, my number 8.
Yeah, Antics is interesting. I think that the idea of Antics that I like the best was taken and then used in their newest game. Or one of their newer games. The one with the wave.
Poseidon's Kingdom?
Poseidon's Kingdom.
The one I mentioned 30 seconds ago?
Yes. Well, my brain is not working right now.
Okay.
But I think that I give them points for trying. I also like the way the board looks.
Yeah.
And it's my number 10 for a reason. It's a decent game, but it wasn't as fantastic as I thought it could be. My number 8 is Picamino. My brain is really not on here. What is the deal? It's the Civil War. It's Captain America. Picamino is a game about worms, and it has these nice little domino tile type things, worms on it with numbers, and you're rolling dice trying to get the right number of worms to claim a tile. You can claim tiles and claim tiles that other people have. It, a little bit Yahtzee-ish, a little bit dice, really nice components, easy to pick up and maneuver around, and it's all about collecting worms. Lots of fun. I actually would have swore this one would have been on Eric's list, but I guess I'm wrong. Picamino.
Very close. I had considered it a little more abstract. I didn't think the theme really came out quite as strongly in Picamino or Picamino. Great game, though. This probably just barely missed the list.
Number 7.
Number 7 for me is Evolution. This is more of the fuzzy side of the Creepy Crawlies, but you can make some sort of insecty or small little mouse-type analogs, and give them different abilities and sort of Frankenstein creatures, which could be a little, spine-tingly. Evolution, my number 7.
Yeah, I can see that one. That is a fair choice. My number 7 is Cockroach Poker. In this game, you will basically offer a card with a creepy crawly on it to someone else and tell them what it is. But you don't show them. And then they say, "You're a liar," or "Thank you," and they take the card. If you ever get 4 cards of the same type in front of you, you lose. That's it, but it has great art if you like the artwork of bugs. It has a classic look. Have you played this game, Eric?
I haven't played Cockroach Poker, no.
The version I had was called, Crackalacken?
Yeah, something like that.
Which sounds a little bit better than Cockroach Poker. Actually, it has nothing to do with poker, really.
Okay.
Number 6.
My number 6 is The Ladybug's Costume Party. This is a children's cooperative game where you're trying to match up ladybugs, and the ladybugs are magnetic. So some of them are positive polarity, some are negative polarity, and when you put them together, they will either attract each other and kiss, which is adorable, or they'll sort of reject each other. And you're trying to match them all up and assign, sort of get them into categories and match them all properly before the grasshoppers overtake the costume party. It's certainly cute insects. They're not really creepy. Not really creepy, but it is a fun way to organize a cooperative game. The Ladybug's Costume Party, my number 6.
I really hate that name. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't think it's better in German. It's like Maskenkoffer do something.
It sounds much more.
It sounds.
I'll play that game.
Yes, the Masquerade of the Ladybugs.
My number 6 is Ants with an
Ants!
exclamation point. And this is a game about having some ants and running around and collecting food and fighting other ants. It's not as polished as it could be, but it's still pretty cool. And of all the ant games, doesn't take itself as seriously. The Antics took itself pretty seriously. Another ant game we'll talk about in a bit takes itself very seriously. This one was more like, hey, let's go. The ants are marching 2 by 2, hurrah. It had that kind of feel to it, and I liked it. I believe it came out around 6 years ago. Lots of fun. Ants.
I bought this game based on your recommendation, and it really just didn't hit the table. I don't think it was my style of game.
I don't think it's your group style game for sure.
Yeah.
Number 5.
My number 5, expanding into the mouse aspect, Viva Topo. This is a kid's game where you're trying to collect cheese while running away from a cat. And the cat is gaining on you as you work your way around the board. And it's sort of a push your luck thing that you can bail if you get one of your mice. You've got like 6 of them. And you're moving this herd of mice around the board and trying to keep the one that's farthest back away from the cat. Or maybe you just sacrifice that one. But each of these mice can bail and go into a little house and grab some cheese. But the farther you go along the path, the larger a chunk of cheese you can acquire. And so you're trying to at least get some of those mice to the end of the track where entire cheese wheels await, and they make it to mouse paradise. Anyway, Viva Topo, my number 5.
Yeah. It's been a while since I played this one. My number 5 is If Wishes Were Fishes. This is a game about getting fish, and these fish are worth different amounts of points. I do not consider fish creepy crawlies. However, this box comes full of purple wiggling worms.
Yep.
Like they really robbed a bait store to make this
Pretty
game.
much.
It is, and you use these worms to not take the cards that you want. You put them on cards, and you can use these worms and do different things with the worms. So they're kind of a currency in the game, and I just think they're hilarious. I do not have this game currently, but I kept it in my collection for a really long time. I think the game is very good, but I kept it because it was full of worms. No question. So
I had a copy of this as well, and the worms were certainly distinctive, but it has left my collection as well.
Did you like the game?
It's been a while, so it's not. It didn't make an impression on me.
Well, either way, that is If Wishes Were Fishes.
Number 4.
My number 4 is Hive. You're playing with these gorgeous little tiles, and it's a 2-player abstract with tons of different types of insects, and each insect moves differently. It sort of feels like a swarm. Some can crawl over each other and move around the outside of the structure, and you're trying to take out your opponent's insects. It's a neat game that really feels like a bunch of creepy crawly bugs. Hive, my number 4.
Yeah, folks, I know this. I knew this would be on everyone's list, but it's not on mine. I'm sorry, I just don't like it.
It's
but
fine.
It's a really good choice for the list. My number 4 is Micro Mutants, which was originally called X-Bugs. The Micro Mutants are still kind of buggish. And it's a tiddlywink game. You have all these little bugs, and you are flipping them across the table at each other. It's the precursor to games like Flick 'em Up. I liked it. Tiddlywinks are pretty random as you shoot them. I mean, maybe some people are good at it. I am the opposite. I've probably shot the X-Bugs hundreds of times, and I believe I hit the target 2s of times. So, but I still think the game is fun. They have different powers depending on which side they land on. So the reprint of it was called Micro Mutants. The original game was X-Bugs.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Chateau Roquefort. This is a game where players have mice that are crawling along the roof of this building. And the roof is sort of this crazy grid of cardboard. And at first, you can't see what's below these roof tiles. When you move onto them, you can pick up that roof tile and see what's below it. And you're trying to match cheese tiles that are on the board in order to acquire those cheese tokens for points. However, there are holes in the roof that you may plunge your mouse down and lose that guy to the elements. What's terrifying about this and makes it a creepy crawly is that what if you're inside this hotel? There are holes in the roof and mice are just plunging down into the building? That's freaky, man. Chateau Roquefort is my number 3.
How do you manage to take a game that's perfectly innocent and make it sound horrifying?
They're like torpedoes of mice.
Folks, ignore that whole statement.
Look out below!
My number 3 is Dominant Species, which is a big fight between different species trying to take over the world in different regards, and one of those species is spiders. So that's why this is on my list. I have nothing else to say. Dominant Species.
I'm glad you like it.
Number 2.
Number 2, we sync up. And this is the ant game that Tom mentioned a little ways back, and that's Mermies. This is a pretty deep game. You have like an anthill board, and you're trying to. There's a lot of resource management here, and you're trying to grow your colony. And there's some action selection, but then there's also a board element to this where you want to send your workers out to acquire resources and farm different tiles, lay pheromones out. There's a lot of very anty things that you do in this game, and it really feels like you're running an ant colony. It's a blast. I love Mermies. Tom?
Yeah, Mermies. I mean, it feels tough, and I think after you play your first game, you'll go, okay, I finally figured it out. Second game, I'll do better.
Right.
It might be slightly too tough, but overall,
it has a steep learning curve. Yeah.
I do like it. Like I said, it takes itself pretty seriously, but it is pretty cool. There's a lot of games about ants out there. This is the best one that I know of.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And finally, number 1.
Finally, we get to Mice and Mystics. Now, even if we had knocked mice off of the list, if we excluded them as creepy crawlies, this game is full of bugs. There are a lot of roaches that can show up, and some, based on what scenario you're using, can be pretty nasty in their effects. There's also a spider that can really mess with you. But when you're facing a swarm of these guys that maybe explode or breathe fire, it can be a little overwhelming at times. The bugs really do it, but there's mice in there too. In Mice and Mystics, my number 1 great game.
My number 1 is Spinderella. This is a game about spiders. This is a kid's game. This was nominated for actually it won the Kinderspiel.
It did win the Kinderspiel, yeah.
It's a game in which you are having these little bugs run across this area. You're rolling a dice and running these bugs across, or moving these 2 spiders, which drop a 3rd spider down, which will catch these bugs due to a magnet. It has like a crane little system there. I'll move the spider closer this direction. That moves the dropping spider over here. This one raises and lowers him. It's a really cool concept. Kids love it. It's silly. It's fun. And even though I hate spiders, and if there was a button in front of me right now that eliminated all spiders from Earth, and I would press it, even if I knew that might doom humanity, I would still press that button. You're like, spiders kill flies. That's okay, but they're still spiders.
Yeah.
If demon lizards were killing flies, I would also hate them. Anyhow,
Yeah.
Even though I hate spiders, I do love Spinderella. The spider just does not seem as scary.
Well, it's a cartoon spider.
All right. Let's see what our contributors think.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Zielinski, and my favorite critter in a game is going to be the Gene Stealer. Yes, this is from Warhammer 40k lore, and it is featured in Warhammer 40k. Also Space Hulk, and in the upcoming game Lost Patrol by Games Workshop. I'm very excited about that game. I've got 2 copies on order, so there you go. Check that game out when it comes out, and enjoy the critters, the Gene Stealers.
Hey everybody, it's the Board Game Point of View, and our favorite game with critters is Cockroach Poker. This game is so awesome it might actually give you rabies.
Wow. Okay, Mr. Powell, how do you feel about this artwork?
It is highly stylized, and it's got
Okay,
kind of a
enough. That's not exciting enough. This artwork is so unique and stylized that it kind of just blows your mind hole open a little bit. And even though there's only a collection of about, 8 or so critters, every single card is unique. So even if you look at each of the 8 cockroach cards,
they're all going to be different.
That's what I'm getting at. You interrupted me, but that's okay.
enthusiastic.
That's a whole lot of critters.
And on top of that, it's a pretty awesome game.
Yo, Derek Davis here from the What Did You Play This Week podcast, and while Spinderella is a fun light game that employs creepy crawlers, my favorite games that capitalize on ants and spiders and other insects are 2 wonderful dungeon crawlers, Descent 2.0 and Mice and Mystics. But if I have to give it to just one game, it has to be Mice and Mystics. I love the intentional storytelling aspects paired with a simple yet strong set of mechanisms that facilitate the experience so well. So check out all the cockroaches and spiders that contribute a much-needed dose of rogue villainy to Mice and Mystics.
Hey there, this is Graham from the Four Corners of the Board podcast. My favorite critter in a game is the giant-sized scarab beetle from the game Kemet. Whenever I play the game, it's always the critter I try and obtain. But if you're looking something a bit more realistic, then I would have to go for the rats in the game Ratus. Sending the rats into other players' areas to cause the plague to decrease their population, there's just something creepy about those critters.
Marty and Tony from RDTN. I don't play any games with critters because they're icky. Tony?
Really? Oh, be a man. It's going to have to be Mice and Mystics for me. That's one of my top games that has critters in the games.
Jonathan from the Snakes Cast. Cockroach Poker has 8 kinds of nasty critters to make your life miserable. Rats, scorpions, spiders, and the ever-popular cockroaches are all coming to live in your house if you can't tell who's lying to you and who isn't. But it's worse than that. There are 8 cards for each type of critter, and every single card has a unique piece of art, and every single one of those pieces is just... The rotten little things are practically gleeful. They know how gross they are, and they're just... Ugh.
Hi, Takas here. For me especially, as the Empire in Imperial Assault, I really love to play the Nexu. They can move very fast and pounce, that means jump around and just ambush the enemy at any time, and it takes up a lot of space, so it is always in the way of the rebel players, so I love the Nexu from Imperial Assault.
This is Trent Howell with the Board Game Family, and the game with the best critter is Bugs in the Kitchen. The main critter of this is a hex nanobug that jumps all around the kitchen. The main premise is to get the bug to go into your corner of the kitchen, and players do this by rolling a die which tells them which type of wall they can change, a fork, a knife, or a spoon. It's all a bit of wacky fun, but the kids love it because of the main critter. Our vote goes to Bugs in the Kitchen.
This is Brian from Cult of the Old. While I'm tempted to say Saprolings from Magic, because with a coat of arms and an overrun you can do an amazing amount of fun damage, I'm going to go with Giant Spiders, and in particular the one from Battle Lore. It was just a really cool sculpt. There's something intimidating about Giant Spiders for me personally, but yet so cool, and a little foreboding that they're pretty cool creatures.
Greg Schlosser here, talking about, bugs. Bugs in games. Wow. that is a very, very weird concept, because who wants to play with bugs? Well, I guess as a child I did, but what about my favorite game that involves bugs? Interesting question, and I'm going to have to go back to 1990 and a Milton Bradley game called Splat. Not only did you get to race your bugs, but you got to smash and stomp your opponent's bugs. It was just great fun, with a little evil intention. So there you have it, Splat, my favorite games with bugs.
Huh. You know, I expected Cockroach Poker. Maybe someone would pick it. I did not expect it to be said twice.
Yeah. Well, you learn something new every day.
Okay, let's see. The People's Choice, number 10, Evolution. They agreed with Eric.
There you go.
As a heads up, I did, again, not very clarifying on my part. Number 9, Cockroach Poker. Number 8, Bugs in the Kitchen. Number 7, Kemet. There's a large scorpion and there's a large stag beetle in the game.
Yeah.
Number 6, Takinoko. I don't know how that one got on the list.
I don't get that's a panda.
I swear people will put Takinoko on any possible thing. It's because pandas are cute. And maybe some people consider pandas critters. I don't think I've ever heard them called that.
Yeah.
Number 5,
I go with Mermies. I've never...
Mermies.
Yeah, but that sounds like it's a mermaid game. It's not the same thing.
Number 4, Dungeon Pets. I guess they're giant critters. Number 3, Dominant Species. Number 2, Hive. And number 1, the ever-beloved Mice and Mystics. Eric,
Sure.
I think we're going to split this one here.
Yeah?
We seem to both have lots of games on it.
We do.
Well, you know, some people said, why would you do a list like this? Because you know what? I think lists like this are important because they emphasize games that we might not normally talk about. I know all 10 of the games on my list I don't talk about hardly at all. So
that's not necessarily the case with me, but okay.
Oh, you know what? I forgot ants, bed bugs.
Like the 1980s game with the vibrating plastic bed?
Yeah, and you use like a chopstick to grab the bugs off the bed as they were bouncing around of your color.
Yeah, I considered it.
Yeah, I like that game. I forgot about that one. All right, let's move on. Until next time, folks, I'm Tom Vassell.
Folks, I'm Eric Summerer.
Don't steal my lines. And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Can't steal, folks. Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 457, was recorded on May 4th, 2016. Coming up next week, what do you do about those flimsy mass-market game boxes? Find out what our contributors have to say. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Atmospheric filtration research provided by the Air Ease Project. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at thedicetower@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including Board Gamers Anonymous, the Push Your Luck Podcast, the Snakes Cast, Rolling Dice and Taking Names, Board Game Brawl, Dukes of Dice, and Dice Tower Showdown at DicetowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. I'm feeling sort of like Oogie now with all this talk of spiders and bugs and stuff.
I was thinking if I saw one in the middle of the podcast, you would then be doing a solo podcast.
I once, our first apartment was new construction and it was infested with spiders. And like we got to meet a new species every day.
I'd burn it down and move.
Terrifying. Anyway.
I'm out.